Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first Finance and Governance Committee meeting of the financial year 23-24. Just a reminder that this meeting is being both recorded and live streamed, so be on your best behaviour if you can. First of all, do we have any apologies? Okay.
Councillor McGrath has given his apologies and Councillor Nettle has given his apologies and is being substituted for by Councillor Wills.
Okay, so I'm doing things a bit back to front here. So first item on the agenda is election of the chairman of the Finance and Governance Committee for 2023-2024. Do we have any nominations? Yes, Councillor Tomes. Thank you, Councillor Tomes. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Wells. Do we have any further nominations? Take that as a no. Can we vote on that? All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the election of the Vice Chairman of the Finance and Governance Committee. Do I have any nominations? Councillor Charleston.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor Tomes.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Rogers. Do we have any further nominations? I'll take that as a no. All those in favour? Carried. Right, item 3, which we've already done. Item 4, do we have any public questions or statements?
No public questions or statements have been received.
Do we have any councillor questions or statements?
No councillor questions or statements have been received.
Next are the minutes of the previous meeting held in January. Is everybody happy with those minutes? Everyone content that I sign those minutes as being true and correct? That is a yes, thank you very much. I'll sign those at the end of the meeting. Are there any declarations of interest? No? Okay, thank you very much. Are there any dispensations?
No dispensations have been requested.
Item 9, Chairman's announcements. You'll be pleased to know that at this time, I don't have any. Item 10, Cultural Partners Update. I'd like to invite Wiltshire Creative and Salisbury Museum forward to provide us with a verbal report.
Thank you very much. I'm Adrian Green. I'm the Director of Salisbury Museum, and am I right?
I'm Sebastian Warwick. I'm the Executive Director of Wiltshire Creative.
Thank you for allowing us to come along this evening. And we wanted to really come to say thank you. I think that's why we're here, because as you'll be aware, earlier in the year, there was the potential to cut the grants that were both given to Salisbury Museum and to Wiltshire Creative. And what Sebastian and I wanted to do was really just to come along this evening to update you on what we're doing with your funding and your support, and to show you how much we appreciate what you've done in retaining the grants at the level that they were originally set at. So I'm just briefly going to set out some of the things that we've been using the funding for at Salisbury Museum, and then Sebastian's going to then update you on some of the things that Wiltshire Creative have been doing as well. So you've actually been funding our family events programme with your grant since 2011. And what we have now is a very well established, high quality and extensive programme of arts, crafts, storytelling and living history activities, which are aimed both at local families and the wider community. And these activities happen both at the museum, at the King's House, on the Cathedral Close, but also as outreach events as well in community places such as Bemerton Heath, but also in the Friary. And in particular, what the grants fund is a programme of activities aimed specifically, as I said, at families. So that includes our Family Discovery Days, which happen every Tuesday over the summer holidays, our Under Fives Fridays, which happen now, I think, on the last Friday of the month throughout the year. Our Festival of Archaeology, which has just happened on the 22nd and 23rd of July, which is something we offer as a donation entry and is very, very popular, particularly with local people. We do Christmas and spring events. We have a spring fair, which is a new thing we've introduced using the funding that you've given us. We also have our Young Curators Club, which is again a monthly event aimed specifically at local families. And we also have community outreach events, as I said already, at places like Bemerton Heath. So it's a very big package of events and activities that we're doing with your support. And the numbers of people that go along to these things vary. So the Under Fives Fridays might attract, say, 30 families on a monthly basis. The Discovery Days, you might get a couple of hundred children. But something like the Festival of Archaeology actually reaches sometimes over 2,000 people over a weekend. So it's very, very popular. And the whole point of us doing these things is because we want local people to be in the museum because they are a key part of our local audience, absolutely essential part of our local audience. We're also particularly keen to reach people who are from lower economics, social economic backgrounds as well. So we try to offer as many of the events at a discount or a reduced rate. And that particularly applies to something like the Festival of Archaeology, where we just offer it as a donation entry. We waive the museum entry fee so people can come in and can enjoy the museum and enjoy the events we're having at a discounted rate. So we're trying to get people in who wouldn't normally be visitors to the museum. That is absolutely critical. But overall, the events package actually helps to increase awareness of the museum. It does drive up visitor numbers. It encourages regular repeat visits. It also acts as a massive incentive to our membership programme. We have over 2,000 people who are now members of the museum. They pay a subscription, but with that, they get free entry and they get free access to all of the events that we offer. So it's a real cornerstone of what we offer as a museum. So the fact that we've been able to retain the events programme at the same level due to the retention of the funding has been critical. The final thing I want to say is about what's going on at the museum at the moment. You probably know that we're undergoing a major £5 million redevelopment called Pass Forward, and most of that has been supported with a grant from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. And that project is about conserving our Grade 1 listed building. It's about creating new exhibition spaces, particularly focused on Salisbury's history. It's about upgrading our public facilities. It's also about reaching out to the local community with an engagement programme that tries again to get to people who don't normally come to the museum or see the museum as for them. And your funding is partly match funding for that work. So as I've said already, it's a cornerstone of what we're doing. What I want to emphasise, though, is that the £5 million is not being used to fund any core activity at the museum. It's purely for the project. And what we've had to do during the project as well is close about half the museum, in fact, more than half the museum. We're partially open, as we say. That's reduced the offer, it's reduced our visitor numbers, and it's also reducing our income. So it's a very challenging time for the museum at the moment. So the fact that you've been able to maintain the grant against that background has been very, very welcome news for the museum. It's been absolutely critical to our sustainability and our future over the next year. So thank you.
I would like to echo Adrian's thanks to this committee. I want to thank the chair, I want to thank the councillors, and I also want to thank the city clerk for allowing us to make a statement at this meeting. The last 2 years, as Adrian has alluded to, have been incredibly challenging. Budgets continue to be incredibly tight, incredibly under pressure for all of us. So, as Adrian said, when Salisbury City Council contacted us to say they were considering reducing our funding for 23-24 by 50%, although we understood, I have to say we were also extremely concerned. It was therefore a great relief when Salisbury City Council was able to reinstate the 50% reduction from 23-24 with funds from 22-23. And this really was hugely appreciated in terms of Wiltshire Creative by both the board and the management of Wiltshire Creative. I was therefore very keen to offer our heartfelt thanks in person to this committee, particularly as we know that Salisbury City Council faces its own financial pressures. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Just your funding enables us to do a range of things, but just to give you a flavour, the reinstated funding supported our work in Bemerton Heath, where we held our first ever family fiesta indoors at St Michael's Church and Community Centre. The fiesta included workshops in circus craft, computer coding, face painting, storytelling and magic. The funding also supported our work with the Friary Estate on the Tempest. It enabled us to appoint a community associate from the estate to work alongside our core staff in engaging with residents as performers, prop makers, set builders and musicians, ensuring committed community engagement, which was completely integrated into the project. Thank you for reviewing your decision and for finding a way to maintain the level of our grant funding. We are extremely grateful. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Would any councillors care to comment? Yes, Councillor Charleston.
Chair. Thank you both for your comments. I am very pleased we were able to change the decision. I think what it shows here is that good communication between benefactors of the City Council and councillors is really, really helpful. So, you know, we did make a lot of very difficult decisions last year. We'll have more to make this year. I think open communication is just incredibly helpful. So thank you for engaging with us. Thank you for coming. Thank you for lobbying as hard as you did for us to change our decision. I'm glad that on this occasion we're able to. And I just encourage other people to come forward in the same way.
Councillor Hocking.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just to say really a quick thank you for coming, telling us a bit of what we're doing. It's always good to find out where our money's going. I haven't done a great deal with the museum, if anything, but I still keep tabs on Wiltshire Creative quite a bit. Tempest was extraordinary. And we're still doing some other things as well. So thank you very much. I'm glad we could find the extra money. And
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Good luck for the future, carrying on the great work you're doing. Thank you. Oh, sorry. I think we have one further comment. Yeah,
Thank you.
Councillor
I just wanted
Rogers.
to give you a bit of feedback from the event you had up at St Michael's Church. Went down really well. Local people really enjoyed it, you know, and their families. Just hope it can be sustained now over future years. You know, it's not just, hope it's not just a one-off. I hope, you know, things like that, where you're engaging people that probably have never got engaged before. Can we now try and sustain it going forward? Thank you.
I will certainly pass that on to our Take Part director, but we absolutely plan to sustain it.
Thank you both very much. Item 11, this special delegation is basically just to note the special delegation and is a procedural item in line with the supplementary grants that were awarded both to the museum and to Wiltshire Creative. So the committee is just asked to note this, and this will come to the next full council meeting. Item 12, section 106, planning obligations. This is just to note the council's section 106 planning obligations.
So this report, which was drafted with the support of Estelle Sherry, the former RFO, just records the section 106 funds and how we've spent them. It's to give a clear account of the situation and provides the evidence, should we need it, to Wiltshire Council of how the funds have been spent.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 13, Q1 budget monitoring. I'll hand over to the clerk.
So I think it may be useful to, before we begin discussing the matter, I'm going to ask Tom Simpkins to hand round an amended report, because I regret there has been an error made in the report. So he'll give you an amended report, which the amendments are highlighted in blue and in para 5.2. Unfortunately, when you see it, you'll see what has happened. 2 lots of toilet blocks got conflated. So we reported on one set of toilets and it was a different set of toilets on which the money has been spent. So my sincere apologies for that confusion. We will put the amended report on the internet after this meeting. So this is a simplified report showing the annual budget and the actual spend as at the 30th of June. This does not forecast or estimate the variance against the expected budget on this occasion. This will be provided at the end of Q2. We have not been able to provide the more full report due to resourcing issues within the finance team, including staff vacancies, staff sickness and summer holidays, which have all impacted on the team's productivity. However, we are able to show you exactly what's been spent, and I do have full details of that should councillors wish to know more detail, but the spreadsheet is 2,000 lines long and it's not useful for me to provide that without an analysis. Do you want me to stop there?
Do councillors have any questions so far? Okay, I will take that as a no.
Move on then to para 3 of the report, which is the Tollgate Road depot refurbishment. This sets out clearly that the estimated costs of the refurbishment have gone up since this was first discussed in 2021. And since that time, we've changed the specification to more accurately reflect the council's long-term needs, which includes a dewatering bay, an infrastructure to support the charging of electric vehicles, and a battery and storage and charging facilities for the electrical batteries of the grounds maintenance equipment. Also, since that time, there has been significant building materials inflation. We had a tender exercise conducted on our behalf by Simpson Hilda, and as a result of that, a local construction firm, DNN, was appointed to carry out the majority of the works. The approximate cost of this contract is 367,000. This does include a contingency figure. That work has already begun, and if any councillors would like to tour to see what's already taken place, we'll be very happy to show them. I'm happy to report at this stage, nothing too unexpected has been found within the building, so hopefully that will continue. Other costs related to this refurbishment, including professional fees, statutory fees and other additional works, will be met by existing budgets, for example, the IT budget and repairs and maintenance budget, or by the budgets identified in the table below. And the table you've been provided within the report shows where the funding for this project is being drawn from. So there is £50,000 in this year's budget for the new depot development. There was £245,000 carried forward from last year because we didn't spend it within that financial year. The poultry cross insurance offset payment is money that we had accounted for last year, but has appeared in this financial year, so it's unallocated funds. So I think this would be a good use of those funds. There's the residual funds from the Public Works Loan Board loan. And there is a payment that we received last year in respect of dilapidations at 47 Blue Ball Road. As the report says, I did make the leaders of the council and the leader of the Conservative group aware of these increased costs during 2023. And the leaders of the council were very keen to make sure this project went ahead. It is a long-term project to acquire and bring into use a depot to be owned by the City Council. and this has been a long-held aspiration of the council, and this is a long-term project to improve the efficiency of our grounds maintenance and street scene services. And I was further instructed to bring a report to this committee, which is this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do any councillors have any questions or comments so far? Yes, councillor Hocking.
Thank you. Can we be sure this is now the end of surprise financial increases that will be coming with the depot? Or have we had to allow for the fact there might be more stuff coming down the road, which we yet have to deal with? Thank you.
So there is some costs yet to be completely identified, particularly around alarm systems and things like, well, the alarm systems and the fire and alarm system, because as you'll be aware, we're not using all of Unit 1 for our own purposes, but we are investigating other options for how that part of the building is used, which may modify the costs of the alarms and security and fire alarms. But this has been extensively looked at by Simpson Hilda on our behalf and DNN. And I'm hoping there won't be significant extra cost, but of course I cannot promise you that.
Councillor Charleston.
Thank you very much. I guess following on from councillor Hocking then, it mentions a contingency figure within the 367,000. Will that contingency figure cover this? Well, obviously we're hoping it's going to cover the kind of fluctuations, what we're thinking the overall finish is going to be. How much is it?
I think the contingency is £10,000 off the top of my head. The fluctuation may be a downwards fluctuation rather than upwards fluctuation. But that's what we're just bottoming out.
Councillor Tomes.
It's to say this is, a long-term project which will benefit the council immensely in the longer term. It will take a number of years for that benefit to really pay through, but we won't be paying rents on other depots. We have more flexibility in how we use this, and we'll possibly have a tenant in Unit 1. With any building project, there is always extra costs, especially if you expand what you want to achieve up there. And we've added the dewatering bay, we've added some extra things to do with electric vehicles. And I really think this is a big project for the City Council, and I think it's a good project that will really be beneficial in the longer term for all the residents of Salisbury.
Councillor Wills.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask, so the paper, as I take it, is looking at construction costs or the cost of the building work for this new depot. Can I just ask, what is the additional rent then that will be charged to the depots that are currently in use prior to the move to Tollgate Road?
Sorry, I don't understand the question. The additional rent.
Is the City Council currently renting out additional depots beyond Tollgate Road?
Yes, we continue to rent the larger depot at Harnham. The other depot, we don't rent that any longer.
And so what is the additional rent that is being charged to for Harnham depot? And I would see that as an additional cost that should also be factored in beyond just the construction costs of the new depot itself, because the rental cost of the Harnham depot is an additional piece of money that the council's having to pay for.
I don't have that information to my fingertips, but I will provide that for you, Councillor Wills.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would just like to say and echo Councillor Tomes' comments and the clerk's comments. This has long been an aspiration for this council, and these additional moves, particularly the dewatering, removes the reliance that we currently have on Wiltshire Council facilities, and the addition of the charging points obviously is in line with our move to electric vehicles and to electrical equipment. This will potentially allow us to consolidate our resources and offer these as a service potentially to other surrounding parish councils, which will maybe provide an additional stream of income to this council. Do I have any further questions from councillors? Yes, Councillor Hocking.
50k, 245 plus 50 plus 50 plus 40 as in the report doesn't come to 437. Comes to 435.
Apologies, I'll amend that as well.
Thank you.
Would you like to speak to the last one? So the final section concerns the cost of the parish poll. As people know, a parish poll was held in April and the cost of the parish poll was just over £39,000. There was no provision made for the parish poll in the 23-24 budget, as you would expect. So the committee is asked to consider how this spend is to be accounted for. The committee may wish to direct officers that this is to be taken from the council's reserves or ask officers to consider where other savings can be made to offset this cost.
Would any councillors like to comment on this? Councillor Rogers.
I haven't got a magic wand, Chairman, so I think all as I can put a plea is some of the areas that we don't take this saving from. Some of those active community grants that we give out, those small grants, you know, 5,000 here, 6,000 there, they are the absolute lifeline to many, many organisations that we support. And I just hope, you know, we don't squeeze them, because it would just be, with some of them, they will just, you know, cease to exist. You could just put your finger in the air and hope that, you know, there's more income comes in from some of the lettings that we have. I suppose you could ask those who organised the poll to pay it back. You know, it's 40,000 we haven't budgeted for. Where are we going to make that saving from? Something's got to cut if we haven't got this extra income coming in. I don't know what I say. I haven't got a magic wand. We can hope, but before we set next year's budget, we've got to identify where this money is coming from, haven't we? Because this is the money that we paid out. Wiltshire Council charged us that money, we paid it, so we're £40,000 almost out of pocket. So say there is no magic wand. Please don't let it fall on those small grants, on those small community groups.
Councillor Hocking.
Ricky, pulling at the heartstrings, I know. So it's funny, isn't it? We've just had our cultural partners here who, when all the hoo-ha kicked off about cutting their grants by 50%, public outcry, loads of pressure, we put our hand down the back of the sofa and we found the money to give it back to them again. Whoops. We've just talked about the depot, massively over budget. We've tried to do new things to it. We need a lot more money than we budgeted for. What did we do? We had to jiggle around and found an extra 100 and whatever it is, £1,000 to do the depot. So please don't sit here and say that, oh no, we've got to cut services and cut grants to find this 40k. I'll give you another example of where we could find the money. So annual budget total £6,893,000. Annual income target £7.5 million. Difference 600k. So in theory, we're 600,000 quid to the good, which we ought to be able to put back in reserves. So I think I've just found where we can find our 40,000, haven't I? Come on, get serious, please. Are we going to start suggesting every time that we have an unfunded expense, we're now going to have to bring that to council? If that's what we're suggesting we do, then I'm fine with that, as long as we do it for everybody. Thank you.
Councillor Tones.
Yeah, I mean, I don't quote me exactly on the rules, but surely always, if we have unfunded expenditure, it has to come to council meetings. It always does, always will do, and always has been all the time I've been around. If money hasn't been allocated or budgeted, then there has to be a supplementary grant, or it has to come to the finance and F&G to find out where that money is going to come from. The difference with perhaps this and what you just mentioned, the other aspects, the community cultural grants, is that was something that achieved something, right? This is really, in many ways, nothing more than a political stunt. We could have got round this by doing other measures. You could have put a motion to council. You could have done other things, but instead of that, You decided to go down this route, and I've never seen this happen before, when a large sum of council money has been expended on basically a stunt. And I think that is why we do need to find out where this money comes from. We can't go along just having stunts paid for by the taxpayer of Salisbury. It's ironic that part of the reason this was done was because there was some criticism of how we were actually spending money. And yet here we are. I don't know what industry you would do this. Certainly from my background as a small businessman, you would never do it. I find it ironic that the one thing you've done is something that's unbudgeted. You know, and that is seriously wrong. I don't know what industry you allow that to happen.
Councillor Wills.
Thank you. I just wanted to come in first of all on Councillor Tomes's comment. I think it's actually very much his attempt to undermine democracy to suggest that a legal poll is a stunt. If it's bound by UK law, then I'm fine with it. You had over 30 residents call for it, and I'm pretty sure that they would be quite offended for you to use the word stunt with their frustration. And let me just tell you one thing, Councillor Tomes. I met an elderly lady in the parish hall when I did my coffee evening, and she didn't even have the internet at home. And she went to the library and she wrote me a letter to say that she cannot afford her council tax, and she amended her direct debit to reflect what was a 5% increase. And you tell her that's a political stunt. I think that's disgusting. My actual question to the chair tonight, Chair, could you please tell us how much excess is in the current reserves and how much of that we can then use to pay for the poll? Thank you.
Of course, we can pay this out of the reserves, but I don't think that's the question we have here. And I would also bring your attention to the fact that this is not the only parish council that this episode took part in. I think you'll find that Trowbridge have also got a £25,000 bill for a similar exercise that had a 1.6% turnout. So I would also echo Councillor Tomes' statement that this is and was a political stunt. I don't like to do that, but you know, as far as I feel personally, and I know a lot of people who feel the same way, that this is a waste of taxpayers' money that could be spent in a far better way. Thank you. Councillor Hocking.
So we don't want to politicise this, but we're going to make a massive political play out of it. Councillor Chair, you haven't answered the question as asked by Councillor Wells. What is the money? How much in excess are the current reserves? They are in excess of where they should be. Why can't we not use reserves, the excess of the reserves, to pay for the poll?
The council has in excess of £1 million reserves, but this is not the question.
So the council has a threshold by which it has to set its reserves by. So my question is, where is the threshold and how much is the council holding in excess of that threshold? Because that should be the amount that gets used to pay for the poll.
We can't give you a specific figure on the reserves today, but the council's reserves are set at £1.2 million.
Chair, I think that's appalling. You're here to chair the Finance and Governance Committee of a city council that's over £6 million budget. You can't tell me how much is in the reserves today. We should be having this discussion at this meeting.
Excuse me, can we go back to the agenda item on the paper? And that is about where we get the money from the 40,000. Trying to distract us onto other issues is not relevant. We have got to either take this money out of reserves now, and then we will have to pay it back later when we do the next budget. The reason we have reserves is because of best practice and effect. We have to keep 1.2 million in reserves.
The council has agreed what that threshold should be for the reserves, and you can't even tell me right now how much is in there. So I actually can't comment as to whether or not or how we should be funding the poll if you can't tell me how much is even in the reserves in the first place. That's really poor financial management yet again from this left-wing administration.
I don't have my finger on the exact figures of the finances of this council. That's why we have council officers, so we can refer to.
Chair, I move that we pay this from reserves.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
Councillor Hawks proposed and who seconded, please? Councillor Rimmer, thank you.
Okay. All those in favour? All those against? All those abstaining? Okay, so that motion is carried. Yes, councillor Wills? Okay. Okay, apologies. Only 3 people voted for it, so it wasn't carried. No, it's not carried because it's not a majority. Yes, councillor Wills.
okay, fine. So quite a few of you have abstained on that first option. So the second option is you've got about £700,000 room between your income and your expenditure. That's £700,000, which hasn't been allocated to budgets, but is available. So I would propose that that is another option. Would you accept that to pay for the poll?
All those in favour? Yeah, councillor. All those against?
Sorry, Chair, this is, yes, this whole thing is political. The whole £40,000 from the very beginning, we have asked you previously how you want to pay for this. We have asked you to take part in the actual budgeting process. Yes, we can pay for this out of reserves. Yes, we can pay for it out of money that we can find. It's just frustrating to hear you not accept that this was a mistake and this was a problem and that you have cost the city money.
Councillor Wills.
Sorry, this is unbelievable. You're looking at a 73% increase in the precept across the next couple of years, and you're telling me that we are costing city money. You've spent £25,000 on a consultation about a tree strategy. This city council is completely out of touch with what residents are actually looking for in this city, and this is not the time to be having this debate. I think it is so offensive to the people who packed out the Guildhall twice over because they are so fed up with the way that you are treating them. So let's not talk about stunts and all the rest of it, because you're actually undermining the UK rule of law by saying it's some sort of stunt or it's undemocratic. Absolutely ridiculous. Can we please get back to the topic here? How are you going to pay for it? We've given you 2 options, and it's actually really good to hear that tonight you have accepted that yes, you can pay for it out of the reserves or you can pay for it out of the budget. And that is a discussion we should have been having tonight, not the thing you're trying to put on the table here. It's wrong.
Councillor Dalton.
Sank down there, Chairman. Thank you. I was expecting, probably wrongly, that you were going to ask if anybody out there wanted to talk, but before you took the vote, I'm I mean, it has to be paid by reserves, in my opinion. I don't think there's any other way to pay for this. However, I have to say I am confused on the Conservative group's position here. When you come in committee, Sven, especially, you're an experienced councillor, you often quiz to death the officers on, you know, the nearest pound. Do they need this? Can we save that? Can we do this? Blah blah blah. But I hear no criticism, if that's the right word to use, about the cost of this poll, which was unfunded effectively. I mean, I take it we could have one of these every month unfunded. I mean, we'd have to try and work out how to pay for it. And you knew at the outset that it's a non-binding poll. Now, as a councillor, I would have expected you, at least, because unless you're inept, of course, at what you do as a role as a councillor, that you would know to take a motion to council. That would carry the weight. Now, I don't know whether you can take a motion to council to limit council tax rises. I don't know. That would be free. We wouldn't be sat here now discussing how the city is going to pay 40,000 quid. And not one of the Conservative group stands up and criticises it. And yet when it comes to a grant in a few months' time or a few weeks' time, you'll be quizzing the grant people. Do you really need this? Have you gone anywhere else for the money? You're looking stupid.
Councillor Wills.
Thank you. Well, I think the person who's looking stupid right now is Councillor Dalton. This notion that we've got a non-binding poll is absolutely ridiculous. Can I just remind everyone here in this room that Brexit was a non-binding poll? So let's get that argument off the table first of all. I think the other point here is that we have got an administration that does not want to listen to the views of its residents. You are here to represent people in this city. And I think it's completely wrong to say that in any sense that this was some sort of stunt or it doesn't matter, or it's unacceptable. No, the reason why this matters is because for the first time in Salisbury, we actually gave people a chance to have their say. And I'm proud that over 1,000 people came through the door in both polling stations to have their say. And do you know something? Yet again, we have got a poorly attended council meeting where no one here is from the public, no one cares, no one's interested. But for that one evening, polling stations did see that stream of people coming through. And you know something? I'm all for democracy and for giving people a chance to have their say and to scrutinise me. So let's do more of that. I think it's really wrong to also criticise Wiltshire Council here in terms of the spend on the poll. I think what you're also doing, and I don't think you quite realise it, Councillor Dalton, is you are criticising the officers who actually ran the poll on that evening. And I think actually we need to respect and recognise the work that was done. The running of that poll by Wiltshire Council was not a political exercise. It was done by electoral services officers. So let's not say that in any sense this was politicised by the cost. It's not. This was simply the process being followed through by the officers of the council.
Councillor Wells.
Just one thing that I must say at this point. I actually attended both public meetings, and before a decision was made to proceed with it, I pleaded to the people attending the meeting on the grounds that the outcome would not be able to enforce a 5% limit, and that the only thing that would come out of it would be an expectation of consultation. And when I stated that I am sure that the current administration would comply with the request for full consultation at an appropriate stage, my integrity was questioned by Councillor McGrath.
Councillor Wills.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm that's great, really pleased. But then why have I had to write a draft strategy to get this council for this summer to do a consultation on the budget? If you were really keen about it as administration, you would have done it last summer and actually really consulted with residents quite thoroughly. What I would suggest is that you have decided to put out these arguments tonight to in some way deflect from the important conversation here in the Finance and Governance meeting about how you pay for the poll. And I think let's just focus on that. That is the exam question here tonight. And Chair, I would suggest that we get back to that discussion. I think it's very clear from Councillor Charlton in particular that the reserves are there to fund it, or there is a headroom in the budget. And I actually don't think we need to continue this agenda item at all.
Excuse me, before I go to Councillor Riddle, I would just like to point out that I don't think anybody here was actually criticising Wiltshire officers about the running of the poll.
Certainly not.
Councillor Riddle.
They had a job to do and they got on with it. I don't think anybody's criticising Wiltshire Council officers. I just had a question about something that Councillor Wills seemed to say just now, that you had to write a draft strategy, which we are now pursuing on consultation. You wrote that, did you? You've written what we are actually now doing.
I wrote a slide deck which provided the ideas and they are now being taken forwards. Yes.
You certainly were invited to contribute to a consultation strategy, but don't please tell me that you wrote it
We have an administration here, which is an elected administration that runs this council, and we invited you. And you said to us, Councillor Hocking said to us, this is an olive branch from us, he said at this meeting. Now, your attitude doesn't sound very much like an olive branch to me, Councillor Wills. And frankly, I just think you ought to stop and get on with this decision about how we're going to find this money. But please don't keep saying that you're doing this and you're doing that and you're doing the other. There's an administration in this council that's working very hard. And if you didn't mean it as an olive branch, you shouldn't have said so.
Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Rather than going round in circles, can I propose that we don't make a decision tonight as to where we're going to find this £40,000? We let it roll over until the budget preparations in November. Obviously, my colleagues here are going to say we take it from reserves, but there may be other savings and other opportunities. So rather than identifying where the money's going to come from tonight, can we move it to November when we're preparing our budget for the next financial year?
I was just reminding the chairman that there is a motion that's been proposed and seconded. And I think the motion can be summarised as to find the £40,000 from the difference between the proposed income and the proposed expenditure for the financial year 23-24. That hasn't been voted on yet. I didn't record that, so I'm afraid I don't have who voted for that. Yes, Councillor Hawkins seconded it, but I don't think the chairman put it to the vote. And then Councillor Charleston, for example, said she would have voted differently. So I don't think it was properly put to the vote. My advice to the chairman is there is a proposed and seconded motion on the table. He may wish to take a formal vote in which people hold their hands up high so I can see who's voting in which way.
We've just done that because Councillor Charlton has just said, yeah, I know we just did that. So it's clear there is some money in the reserves. So we took a vote and that comment came afterwards. Everybody abstained. No, twice.
Yes, that is the motion under debate. The first motion has been voted on. This is the second motion that we are now, my suggestion to the chairman is we now vote on the second motion.
Councillor Wills.
I'm sorry, this is absolutely appalling. You can't tell me how much is in the reserves at the moment. So we're then having to look at a different option, not based on merit, but based on lack of information. Is this real?
All those in favour? All those against? All those abstaining?
Personally, I think we go back to what Councillor Rogers suggested, that we agree 6.1 and we agree 6.2. I mean, personally, I can't, if you put this, like most council things that happen, you put this to us before we actually had to spend the money, I wouldn't have voted for it. And that's my problem. I wouldn't have voted for wasting £40,000 if we'd gone through the procedure that normal councils go through over these matters. It may or may not be a legal thing you can do, but that would have been the option. And that would have been the option I would have told any individual who I spoke to about this. There's procedures we go through. I can't vote for wasting £40,000, so I'm not voting for the motions you're putting forward. So I think what we do now, so as Vicky Rogers said, we move motions 6.1 and 6.2.
Councillor Rogers, would you like to repeat your motion, please?
Yes, I I would like us not to take a decision on 6.3, but to move it until November and be part of the budget preparations for the next financial year. So in those budget preparations, we've got to find £40,000 worth of savings.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tomes? All those in favour? Right, now we need to return to items 6.1 and 6.2. 6.1 to note the revenue and capital budget reports for the end of Q1, and 6.2 to note the Tollgate Road depot refurbishment costs and budget allocations. I am proposing that. Do we have a seconder? All those in favour? Okay, that concludes business for this evening. Thank you very much. Declare this meeting closed at 7:21 p.m.
Happy days.